Welcome, everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me, so I'm going to ask if you can hear me, if you could type into the chat. Carol is saying hello. Jay, good evening. So I'm assuming, Jay, you can hear me because I said hello to you, so you must be saying hi to me, right? I should tell you, David, there's a bit of a delay here from the time I say it to the time they respond.
Yes.
And so Jay is saying, yes, she can. Okay, good. We're ready to go. Okay, so I'm very excited to be having this webinar tonight because I think I mentioned this in my emails, if you got my emails, that I did a course with Marina. Marina's here too. She's hiding. She's on the other side of David.
Sorry. Hello.
There she is. David is actually at Marina's house. So David lives in Florida, and he was up here in Toronto for the Total Health Show. And so he is taking advantage of visiting people while he's here. And so he decided to do this from Marina's house. And anyway, so I mentioned that we did this course in September. I don't even remember what the name of the course was. Something to do with auras. And but I was fascinated it was a good 9 hours of live information, and I was like just fascinated. And I spent the whole weekend thinking about people I knew and situations in the world and trying to apply it to what David was saying. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And anyway, so I was very excited, and so I'm really glad that he has joined us here tonight. And before I do the introduction, I just want to tell you we're doing things a little differently in that we do not have a PowerPoint. And we have something called Whiteboard, which David will be drawing on from time to time. So this should be a lot of fun. David is fine for you asking questions while he's doing things, and I will relay them to. Oh, Justine's here. Justine is my colleague at CSN. This is the first time I think I've seen her here. Anyway, see what you've done, David? You've brought all these people out. Okay, so I'm going to just introduce David, and then we can get started. So David Price Francis is an expert in helping individuals, couples, groups, and understand and improve the quality of energetic in their personal lives and relationships, enabling them to achieve greater happiness and success. And this is one of the reasons why I thought he would be helpful to us, because we all have relationships, not just with clients, but with our friends and family and coworkers and stuff. And David uses techniques and strategies that he's developed in private practice working with clients for over 35 years. He's also the author of Partners in Passion, How to Positively Transform the Energies in All Your Relationships, and The Tales of Dr. Wu, A Journey into Truth. His latest book, which has just been released, is entitled From Psychological Pain to Spiritual Happiness, The 9 Prime Causes of Psychological Pain and How to Heal Them. He's also developed, and this is what he's going to be talking about tonight, integrative energetics. And, he's going to be talking about some of the theories that are in integrative energetics, which is a series of online courses that focus on how we can integrate the energies of our mind, body, soul, and spirit. And this is so we can engage in a more holistic way with our life and relationships, as well as being able to better access and understand the energetic intelligence, which is what really fascinates me, our physical and energetic systems seek to offer us every day. I always knew there was something was trying to offer me, and I wasn't getting it. And the first module in this series is called The Human Energy Field. It's a practical introduction to your personal energy field, and it's now available. And I will be sending out contact information for David at the end of this webinar. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Lorraine.
I'm so glad you're here, and I'm just going to let you get started, and we'll just see how it goes.
Okay, fantastic. And we can take questions as we go. One thing to say about the energy psychology, the book, from psychological pain to spiritual happiness, it's coming out in October. So it's not quite just released.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
It will be just released. It's going to be released at the Energy Psychology Conference in Toronto in October. that's when it's coming out. So that's the target date. Good. So thank you so much for having me on tonight, and it was great to see you at the seminar we were in together, and Marina was there also. And I thought, because it is a network of nutrition folks who are very focused into nutrition, we'd start with the idea of energetic nutrition. So just to jump right in from there, with the idea that there are 5 main sources of nutrition that any person needs. And let me try doing the whiteboard thing straight away, just for the fun of it. So this is starting now. I'm going to use the mouse. That's right. I keep going to use the scrolly board because I'm used to that. I better move the T on this side, otherwise there will be difficulties. Here we go. Oh, what happened? There we go. So I'm going to get the drawing tool. Here we have it, and let's do this. Just getting started here. That's the one. So we're going to look at the 4 elements. So this, and this is going to take a little practice, but we have here 4. Whoa, hang on, clear that. I'm going to clear that board. Starting over. Okay. So,
this could be us watching you learn how to draw.
Exactly. So that's why I thought it would be fun. So here we have one element, which would be Earth, trying to make a little star shape. Another element here, that would be, whoops, oh, you know what? I'm going to clear that. I'm going to describe it instead. Okay, let's just switch the whiteboard off. I'm going to describe what I'm saying. So I've been practicing my drawing, but I'm not used to using the mouse. So there we go.
I can see if I can,
Oh, that's okay. We're good. So what we have is 5 major kinds of fuel that we need to live. And they work with this system of alchemy and astrology. Now you've got the earth sign, the water sign, the air sign, and the fire sign. Well, they correspond with 4 kinds of nutrition. So the earth corresponds with physical nutrients. So this is to do with the kind of training into what kind of physical food are people eating, how much cosmic content does that food contain, whether that food is, has it been processed, not processed, all of the dynamics that I'm not going to be talking about too much because the people on this call know far more about it than I do. So that would be the physical food. The next kind is water food or liquids. So the next one is air. The next one is fire. So we've got earth, water, air, and fire. The fire food is light. So we've got physical food, liquid food, gas food, and light. But the 5th, which used to be called the quintessence, quint is a word that means 5th. So the 5th essence is actually the energy worlds. It used to be called ether. The 5th element was called ether. It's where we get the idea of things coming out of the ether. We also get the idea of the etheric or etheric, which when seeing the aura, the etheric is the closest in band, I'll go back a bit, around the edge of the head and coming around the shoulders. When you can see energetically, the etheric is the band of energy that can be seen around the head. Now, when that is well charged, the etheric is kind of about 3 to 4 inches. It's kind of up here and comes around the head and shoulders and body to that distance. When we're low on energy, it shrinks. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is energetic nutrition and the energy worlds of the human and the human energy field. So our energies depend upon all 5, I'll use that, all 5 of the, instead of drawing, this is the PowerPoint, all 5 of the foods, right? We have the earth food, water food, air food, light food, and then this one, thumbs up, this one is the energy world's food, and this corresponds with the human energy field, and also that corresponds with the energies of the planet. So the energy worlds of the planet are clearly the planet's aura or energy field is much larger than the energy field of any individual person. So there's 7.5 billion people on the planet right now, including everyone on this call. And each one of us lives inside of our own energetic egg or bubble. If I go back from the screen a little bit, I can say my bubble of energy, my aura, is stretching out around me approximately 32 inches. So when you hold your hand out stretched, coming to about the edge of the fingers is where your energy field usually extends to. Now, when you have a supercharged energy field, it can actually expand beyond that. And when you're lower on energy, it can contract. So we're going to talk about what's called the electro-immune system tonight. So on the call, you've heard of the immune system and boosting the immune system. I'm sure that you've done work with superfoods, and you have a lot of understanding about the dynamics of nutrition to do with boosting the immune system. Quality of food, quality of water, quality of breathing, having sunlight. This is all to do with boosting the immune system. What isn't so well known is that there is an electro-immune system. The electro-immune system lives inside our energy field, and to me, that is actually the first level of resistance, which then translates to the physical. So we live inside our electromagnetic egg, and this egg radiates colors and it radiates power according to what's in our energy field. So if we have a high level, let's say, of potent thinking, creative energy, we may see that there's a lot of green, a pale green around the head and out in the energy field. Someone's feeling calm, peaceful, there's very often a nice peaceful blue. If someone's a bit angry, they may literally see red, because red is the color that goes into the field. And the important thing here is the nature of the colors, because we go from murky colors, which is at the low end of the energy field, or the low end of the energy worlds, all the way up to highly illuminated colors. So there's like 7 wave bands of energy, and at the low end, there's the murkier, darker energies, and at the high end, there's more spiritual, illuminated energies. And what isn't well understood in the energy practitioner world is that our energy field and all of the chakras or energy vortices inside that field can be filled at any of the 7 levels of the planet's energy worlds. So the energy worlds of the planet, think of it like an aquarium. What you have you've got this aquarium, you've got this, I'll come back a little bit, you've got this bar of energy, and at the top end of the bar, up here, this is where like the goldfish swim. That's why in Japan they're into the goldfish swimming at the top, that like to be close to the sun. If you get to the very bottom level, you've got the kind of the grubbers or the flounders that are grubbing along the bottom, and you've got the gradation of energetics in between, and different kinds of energy hang out at the different levels. So a human being can be living at a low level, taking in low-level energetics, and all of their system, their energy field, their chakras, their mind, the soul, can be running on that low-level energy. That's called being a lowlife. We have expressions for these things. And I want to get across the idea that every action, every human behavior, every thought, every feeling has an energy attached to it. So I'm not kind of just saying, oh, let's just float up into the higher energy worlds and forget about the rest of human behavior. Human behavior spans the whole energetic spectrum. So if someone's living down at the low end of the energy bar, that's the end where there's things like criminality and abuse and despair, different things that hang out at the low end, cruelty. But you climb, as you climb through, for example, the energies of trade and commerce. That isn't at the 7th level, but it's more like level 6. And there is a chart of the different contents of the astral light that Lorene is going to send out at the end of this seminar. So what I'm talking about tonight, there'll actually be a diagram that you'll receive that shows the 7 levels and some of the contents that live in each of those levels. So level 7 has kind of got criminality, depravity, you could say, degenerate behaviors and energetics. Level 6 is more to do with trade, commerce, Wall Street, Bay Street. Level 5 is more to do with education and learning. When you get to level 4, you start to get to core planetary connection and actual healing force, healing power, healing energy direct. So I like to say a doctor isn't necessarily connected to healing energy. A doctor might be at level 6 because the thought processes and the reason they're doing it is because they're financially based. In which case, they're not connecting to healing energy, they're connecting to financial energy. A healer can be at level 4 and may not be a doctor, but they've actually got healing energy literally coming out of their hands, coming out of their eyes, and they can project that healing energy from their hand into somebody else's energy field and actually transmit healing with the hands. And they don't even need to be physically touching, they can be transmitting. It can even be transmitted over the telephone, it can be transmitted through a picture. That's a healer. So they're connected to a higher level frequency. And level 4 is more to do with the healing energies of the planet. Level 3 is more to do with the healing energies connected to the light of the sun. And this is where in world history we get pictures in the aura of, for example, a yellow glow around the head. Sometimes even you get a golden disc at the back of the head, which is when you look at someone and you go, hello, hello, hello. You kind of look and they've got this yellow ring. That is caused by the switching on of the higher brain and mind function, which I believe is to do with the pineal gland. And when a higher energetic signal comes into the brain and activates the pineal gland, it actually kind of switches it on. It goes beep, and it starts to rotate, and it sends out a yellow signal that looks like a solar disk. And they show that in Egyptian art, they show that in Christian art, and in the module on the human energy field that I created, there's a slideshow that actually shows the human aura through world history. So you see it in different religions, from Sikh to Buddhist to Hindu to Christian. They all show the same kind of patterns around the head, and those patterns are representing higher energetic signals. So for someone who is a therapist of any kind, I call this a well-connected therapist. They're people who've been able to rise through the levels of the energy worlds. They're clearly not operating at the level of criminality. They're operating not only for financial reasons. They're not only operating out of having a good education and reference, but they're genuinely altruistic and empathetic and genuinely looking out for the well-being of their clients and the people around them, and of course themselves. So this is why we have the title tonight, Boosting Your Electro-Immune System for Well-Being. And the well-being is both in the clients and in the practitioner. And the well-being comes from being well energetically connected. So with our 5 kinds of food, we want to be eating well, and leaving that with the nutritionist tonight. We want to be drinking well. I said at Budweiser doesn't make you wiser, right? So there's drinking well. We want to be learning how to use our breathing to bring in good air and breathing content, and making sure that we have, example, full spectrum lighting. Watching out for fluorescent lights that put out a toxic radiation, and also get time in the sun. And then the 5th one, how we think, how we feel, how we use our mind, how we use our emotions to bring in energy directly from the energy worlds of the planet. And when we bring in high frequency, high level planetary energy, we can actually improve and boost our electro-immune system, become less prone to invasion, both by energetic kind of parasites and also viruses, colds, this kind of thing. Because our electro-immune system is our first line of defense, even before our physical immune system. And this is energy medicine. It's the medicine of the future. And this is what I've been working with for 40 years. I used to teach people 40 years ago how to use their eyes to begin to see the energy field, how they can feel the energies from their hands with their hands. And of course, 40 years ago, people looked at me a bit strange. Like what are you? I was at college where I started to learn this, and I was telling my friends, and they'd be like, it's a little strange, that one. Now, the same people are reading books on how to see the aura and about the energy worlds and what's going on energetically. And something to take note of, 40 years ago, words like Reiki, Qigong, even Tai Chi, yoga was unusual. What's happening is we're entering into a time in the planet which is becoming increasingly energetically charged. It's part of the idea of entering the age of Aquarius. People tend to think that Aquarius is a water sign because of the water bearer, but Aquarius is an air sign, and Aquarius is not the water carrier at all. Aquarius is the power carrier. This one I can show on the whiteboard. If I could have that back for a moment, this one I can manage. Yeah, here we go. So this is the Aquarian. Here comes the Aquarian symbol. Here we go. And you can see this symbol is a bit wobbly, what I'm doing. But what happens is that the symbol is the symbol for energy or force. Let's do it a different way. Let's make it better. Here we go. So here we have the symbol for energy, transmission of energy. The Aquarian symbol is not a symbol which is representing water at all. This symbol in Egypt, they used to use it for transmission of energy. You actually see people holding a hand with zigzag lines coming out of the hand. We could clear the board now. You have zigzag lines coming out of the hand. And what that's showing is that they were actually firing energy from the fingers. And it's the symbol for the transmission of energetics. So Aquarius is the energy carrier. And what's happening is that there's many, many new modalities of energy work, energy healing appearing every day. And people are kind of saying, well, this is the modality that works, or that's the modality that works. The way I read it is they're all responding in different ways to the incoming energies of this time. And energy medicine is something which is growing. And alongside that, the quality of nutrition that we actually take in from the physical food, liquid food, our air, food, and light is also increasingly important, because on the planet right now, there are those people who are seeking to raise the level of their vibration. I call it being upwardly mobile and moving in an upward movement into the higher vibration levels. I call that process human evolutive. That is, they're evolving into the higher levels. There's also a polarity going the other way, which is people who are increasingly into power and control over others. I won't talk too much about that, but it's why there's like a polarization. One polarity is going up here, the other one's down here. We're seeing a bit of a separating out in the human condition. And the people on this call tonight are helping other people lift the level of their vibration. If it's starting in nutrition, it's the same feature, which is lifting the level of vibration by lifting the level of, I call it cosmic content in the food that they actually eat. Because, you know, you get a lot more cosmic content in a lettuce, fresh lettuce just picked up out of the ground, than a can of beans that's been on the shelf for 2 years. At the same time, you get more cosmic content from a walk in the forest, like forest bathing, than you will from watching a movie that was created 2 years ago that is like Fast and Furious #7, you know. And it's an interesting thing, like in Hollywood, Fast and Furious will bring in many tens of thousands of people to watch it, but Slow and Peaceful won't, because it's not dramatic enough. So there's a lot of drama in the lower end of the energy worlds, and in the high end, there's actually a sense of peace. This is why we get practices like mindfulness, increasing yoga practice, raw food movement, vegan movement. All of these different movements are trying to lift the level of vibration of the human race to evolve and develop. So what's this got to do with then having clients living a life today? When you take on a client, you take on everything that travels with the client. So, example, it may be that someone comes to you for help, and they come because they're overweight and they're looking to lose weight, or they're not feeling well and they want to increase their sense of well-being. And as a coach, well, then you take them on and you give them information. But if all you were doing was giving them information, they could go to a book. and they could get a book from the library and it would tell them what to eat, and they would go away and they wouldn't need any more help than that. And we all know that doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is they need an energy charge to help them actually see it through. And the reason that they come to a person and then keep coming back is they need what I call the charge to change. So let's say if we let's do a little practical. If here's Marina, we might be able to catch this on the camera, right? So here's David and here's Marina. You can see you in the camera, not quite. Need to come closer. All right. So here's David and Marina. All right. And now, so Marina's coming, let's say, to David. David's going to do some coaching. Well, what would happen, come a bit closer still, is that when I'm coaching Marina, energies will transfer from Marina to me. And so let's say Marina's having difficulty because I suggested she'd go onto an all-lettuce diet. I'm not saying I would, but let's say I did. And she's coming to me saying, but David, I need some other kind of veggies. I can't manage it. Then I'll be needing to give her the charge to be able to keep going. And she's going to meet psychological blocks. Thanks, Marina. So in the real world, it's like somebody might be giving up, say, fast food. Yeah? And you're trying to get them onto a more nutritious diet, but they drive past Tim Hortons and they feel pulled, they feel drawn, they feel compelled because there's donuts in there and their systems know it. Well, they'll come to you saying, I'm really finding it hard to resist this, and then you'll be helping them through their psychological blockages. And what that means is they leave with a new charge to carry on. And guess what happens to you? You pick up some of the energy that they deposit and leave behind. So there's techniques to deal with this. And energy transference is something that you're going to be experiencing more of. I'm sure you've had the experience where someone comes to you for help, and after they go, they leave feeling kind of uplifted. They're a bit more buoyed up. They're feeling more happy, like, yeah, I can do this. And you're in your office going, oh, my Lord, how can I go on? Oh, and I've got another appointment in 10 minutes. Oh, no, right? So what do? There's things you can do. One of which is if you have a small bell, you actually can ring the bell. So what you're doing is you're ringing the bell, and what the bell does, bells are designed to break up, lower vibrations. So you take the bell and you ring it. This one's a little...
It's not a very good one.
Yeah, it's a China bell. You take your brass bell and you ring it. What that does is it breaks up the vibrations in the area where you are working. And what that means is that you then clean and clear the atmosphere between clients. So what I do is when I'm working with clients, I have definite technologies that I can use to clean and clear and make a break between the clients. One of which is that I'll use a bell. I may use what I call spritzing, which is I'll take some essential oil, like essential oil of lavender, that's already been put into water with a spritzing bottle, which is like a kind of bottle, what kind of bottle you get from the dollar store. You literally just squirt, and the water mists into the air, and it produces a lavender effect. Or you can use frankincense. The reason these things are potent and work, here's an example of lavender. The reason these things work is that they are connected into core planetary frequencies. So when you use essential oils, they're actually bringing in a core planetary essence. I call it a level 4 essence. It's like a healing essence, and it cleans and clears the ecology. The best thing would be to be able to be meeting clients outdoors, where you've got all of nature cleaning the atmosphere. But very often that is impossible. So you're in a room and you've got 4 walls, a ceiling and a floor. So how do you then clean the energies in there? You can use sound vibration, you can use scent, and you can also use incense. You have to be careful with that. Using frankincense is very good. You've got to be careful with smoke detectors these days, all right? So, but you'll find churches know about this stuff very well. when someone's going to church, then original old-style churches, they would have a big church bell. And as the people are approaching the church, the bell rings, and the bell actually breaks up the energies, the lower energies of people as they approach the church. When they come inside the church, they use so-called holy smoke. What's the difference between smoke and holy smoke? Well, they don't burn old newspapers and just produce smoke. They use a particular kind of resin, which is a resin that is from frankincense, what they use in most of the churches, because that produces a high-level frequency that actually absorbs and then clears away lower frequencies. You can use smudging. I find smudging works best outdoors. It's mostly used outdoors, but that's okay. You can use sweetgrass and sage. Same idea. And then they use so-called holy water. What's holy water? Holy water is water with energy charge. And what they say is that only the priest can produce the special energy that goes in the water to make holy water. Oh, I don't accept that. In the energy module, the human energy field module that I offer, there's a video showing you how to make your own holy water. You get a bit of salt, you charge up the salt with your energy from your hand, you charge up the water, you mix them together, you put it in a bottle, and then you can splash it around the place. What it does is it produces a high-level frequency energy charge. So water to holy water, extra energy. Smoke to so-called holy smoke, extra energy. Difference between dance and so-called sacred dance is the energy that is present in the dance. That's the difference. That's why in like the Balinese temple dances, they wear these amazing fingernails. You know, they come these long fingernails. Originally, they didn't need to wear those fingernails. They didn't need to wear those finger extensions, those brass finger extensions, because they could see the energy streams coming from the fingers. Those hats they wear with the big spikes and the gold hats, they used to see those in the energy field. So we have our regular colors, which are the spectrum. Like the Hopi tribe said, we're rainbow people. We have a spectrum of red to violet. But then the royal colors, which any person can bring into themselves, are metallic. They're gold and silver and platinum. So when, say, with royalty of Britain, you know, they take the gold crown and they put it on the person's head, it's meant to signify that they have a connection to the gold power of the sun, which is why it's called a corona ion, the coronation. But all that is a lump of metal on someone's head. It doesn't make the connection happen. But when you actually have the higher energetic connection, that's when the gold appears in the energy field. Any person on the planet can be royal by making that connection. Having palaces and soldiers and all the rest of it doesn't make the connection happen. All that is owning a lot of stuff. So we're talking about raising the level of energy vibration to the point where this well-being overflows.
David, got a couple of comments.
Sure.
One is from Jennifer, and she says she uses a protective shield.
Right. So I used to use protective shields more than I do now. I call them now filters. So I don't use protective shields anymore. I will use a filter if I'm going into a very crowded, busy place. Like let's say I'm going into Times Square in New York. I will put a pale blue filter in my field. I'll put a blue color, and actually kind of like this color, and I'll put it in my energy field, and I'll imagine it there. And if you can actually, I'll go back a bit. You can actually put it in your field by making an action like this, and you actually put the pale blue in your field, and it filters out the lower colors. So it filters out the red and the orange, the darker, the murky end of those colors. Nothing wrong with red, nothing wrong with orange, just filters out the murky end of those colors. But I don't use a protective filter when I'm working with clients. And I'll explain why. Because when you actually create a shield or a filter when you're working with a client, you block their energies. So what I do is I actually want an empathetic flow with the person I'm working with. That means I actually take on their energies because that's how I can best help them. I need to be intuition, literally that word says intuition, to the energies that's coming from that client. So I need to take them into myself and then receive the signals that come with those energies. What's necessary for me as a practitioner is then to have sufficient energy charge in myself to be able to process those energies and know how to clean myself up. So the major thing with knowing how to clean yourself up is having a very strong sense of the reason why you're doing what you're doing and why you're doing it. This was a dynamic that actually Lorene specifically wanted me to speak about, which is how to overcome any feelings of I'm not quite ready for this, overcoming feelings of inadequacy, even the need to kind of protect myself from my client's energy. But what I find is most crucial is it's not even a matter of having a positive mind state. I do need I will take the whiteboard again for this one, if I may. And how do you clear the transparency slide?
Right here.
Ah, great, thank you.
David,
yes.
While you're drawing, somebody asked about Sufi dance.
About which?
Sufi.
Sufi?
No.
What? I can't hear you.
Sufi, S-U-F-I.
Oh, Sufi. Wow, that's a whole dynamic. I'll say just one thing about it, then I'll come to this drawing. I'll need to stand up for this. That what they're doing is that they're raising one hand up to the universe, and they're drawing in power from above, and then they're directing that power. I don't know if you can see me, but they're then directing that power down into the planet. And in their spinning, they're drawing higher energy in from the universe and transmitting it into the ground. And they're feeding the planet and all living beings on the planet with a higher level of energetic. That's kind of what the core of what they're doing is designed to be about. Because when we spinning things draw things in. So once I actually did see this, I practiced for years how to see things energetically in the energy worlds. And a flower is literally a flower. Like, look at the word. It's a flower, but it's a flower because energy flows through it. And one time when looking energetically at a daffodil, imagine my hand here is the daffodil. Well, you can see the yellow of the flower, and it's stationary. But using energy vision, what I saw was the dynamic of how the daffodil works. And it was not yellow, but it was a silvery color, and it was spinning like here. So fast it was a blur. It was spinning very, very quickly. It was drawing in power from the atmosphere of the planet, sending it down through the stalk into the ground. Every single part of the planet's organic life is gathering in universal energy. And that's why astrology played such an important part, because they reckon that a daffodil is primarily bringing in a certain kind of force, which was more to do with Jupiter, like the oak tree is Jupiter, the poppy was more to do with Mars. And in ancient times, they actually went through and they coded different animals and plants to different astrological energies. And they said that the wolf brings in more Mars force. So, like Romulus and Remus in Rome was based on Mars force. Not surprising then that Rome is very martial. Martial arts is based in Mars. So there's a whole range of astrological energies. And when I look at the organic life of the planet, every single part of the planet's organic life is gathering energy and feeding it into the ground, into the planet, and is processing on behalf of the planet. The human, we do that too. Only we have this amazing possibility that, unlike a daffodil or a tree or a dolphin or a dog or the rest of organic life, they're all tuned into a particular frequency. and they're fully 100% doing what they're doing, they're being what they are. As human beings, we can develop psychologies, and we have a consciousness that says, why are we here? What are we here for? What are we doing? Why am I doing it? Where's God? What's the purpose of life? So we have this ability to range from the low end of the energy world spectrum right up to the high end. We can go from from the demonic to the angelic. Now we've got this incredible range, which nothing else does. And the Sufi are dancing to bring in high energy vibration and bring it from heaven to earth. So they're bringing in solar or star power, and they're spinning to wind it in and then transmitting it into the energy worlds of the planet. All of the world religions were trying to do stuff with energetics. In whatever form they were doing it, they're trying to create a higher level frequency, which often gets code-named as heaven. They're trying to get a higher frequency and bring that into the earthly plane in their origin. Unfortunately, very often they then turn into something else further down the track. You know, they then become they're no longer at the high end. There's a big difference between Jesus the Christ and his message of forgiveness and the Spanish Inquisition. You know, somehow they're still claiming to be Christians, but they're not Christian because what they're doing doesn't have forgiveness, certainly doesn't have turn the other cheek, you know. So there's major contradictions. There's no such thing as, like, you know, Christian warriors, because Christ was all about forgiveness and take the weapons of war and turn them into plowshares, make peace. So there's a lot of contradiction in religions. I try and go for the higher end, but the Sufis are a great example of a simple dance to bring in power and transmit it into the planet. But to go to our diagram here, this cross, what I want to represent is that if we have the idea that there is positive and there is negative, people tend to say, well, think positive, think positive, think positive, don't be negative, don't be negative. And if they feel like they're being negative, they can feel a bit inadequate and like, oh, I'm really not ready to I can't take on clients today. I'm not quite in the right place in myself. Well, what I want to put forward is that positive and negative is part of a binary system, but we need to bring in the other axis, which is actually north-south, which is high. This would be to do with high signal, and this would be to do with low signal. So what happens, and I realize this, a lot of the damage on the planet is being done by positive thinking people. Really. But they're positive thinking about low things. So someone who's working for Big Pharma and they're designing the latest ad campaign, they're very positive about doing it. They're thinking positive, but they're thinking positive about something which is destructive. A person can be thinking negative in a destructive way. They often do less damage. They're usually more damaging to themselves than to other people, actually. But if we go to the higher axis, someone who's thinking positive about helping people make an upward vibration is moving them higher up the bar of the energy world's nutrition. And so-called thinking negative is really important because it's the ability to say no to things, the ability to deny the things which would bring us down. So I think of this as posit ion, this is negate ion, this is construct ion, this is destruct ion. I call it the ionic quadrant. And the word ion, if you look it up in the dictionary, we could clear that now. Thank you. We'll get a bigger video again. The word ion, if you look it up in the dictionary, it actually says, you look at ion, you look it up in Webster's dictionary, it says a positively or negatively charged particle. That's what it says. So any word that ends in ion is an energy word. That's why I call my book on relationships Partners in Pass Ion or Passion, because when two people come into a relationship, it's the energy charge from the eyes that very often begins the relationship. We all know the experience of looking at someone across the room and suddenly something goes ch-ch, and there's this flash of energy, and we know that's the person we need to speak to. It wasn't physical, it wasn't liquid, it wasn't air, it wasn't light, it was energy. And we can feel an energetic attract ion or attraction. So any word that ends in ION, think about nutrition or felicitations, congratulations, desperate ions. Anything that ends in ION is an energy word. And the words that really move people are not the words that describe physical things, like a car or tofu or hamburger, whatever, but it's words like love, charity, patience, passion, dignity, humanity, humility, hope. Each of these words describes an invisible property, but we all know that these invisible properties exist, and we put names to them because we know they're identifiable and that we can actually identify that invisible property. When people go to pray, they go to church, let's say, to pray, so they're putting their hands together and they're going to pray. Very often what they're doing, I've got a hand here, they put their hands on this area. This is the solar plexus, which is a particular power point in the body. So they're projecting energy from the solar plexus out through the hands, and they're making a ray of power. It's a P ray. P is a letter that to me signifies power. They're making a ray of power that's traveling from them into the energy worlds. And if they go to a place like a church, a synagogue, or out in nature, they're going to a place where they can amplify the energy transmission. So if someone goes to pray, they don't tend to go to Walmart to pray. They don't go and gather the signal from a low energy place. They go to a high energy place. They even go on a pilgrimage. When someone comes to see you as a client and they're coming to visit their kind of nutritionist, they're coming to visit their life coach, they're coming to visit their social worker, what they're looking for primarily is an energy vibe. They're looking for a vibe that gives them support, that gives them help, and they're looking for that charge that helps them to move on. So I believe that as therapists, a big part of our necessity is how we can position ourselves to be neutral and working in a constructive way. So don't worry if you feel like I'm not fully at my best today, or I've had an emotional drama at home, so should I even be doing this? Put that to one side and look at your purpose, because your connection to purpose is what boosts your electro-immune system and causes a powerful vibration in your energy field. And if you know that you're doing something for the right reason, and then you have technologies to back it up, it gives you the ability to keep going for the long term. So this is working to not fall prey to burnout. I remember one time I was working with social workers in the Bronx in New York. And when I went around and asked them what was their biggest difficulty, the word that kept coming back, two words actually kept coming back. One was overwhelmed and the other was burnt out. And those were the issues we addressed. And we looked at two main cures, which I also wanted to get to tonight, in respect of your own practice and how you can help yourself and others. Because one of the major syndromes that we're up against is what's called the overwhelmed syndrome, where we literally get overwhelmed by energies that come from outside of us that overwhelm our ability to generate power. So there's two main remedies, and this will be in the book on the 9 psychological pains that's coming out in October. But there's two major remedies, one of which is pruning no longer necessary obligations. Pruning and reducing the pressures that come upon us that are not essential to our life. So even including if there are people who regularly contact us, who drain our energy, if we've got obligations because we said we'd be on a board, let's say, but we no longer want to be on that board. If we are still being a hockey mum when we don't want to be a hockey mum anymore because the boy's now 20, we can kind of let go of certain things, and that reduces the external pressure. The other one is to generate increased energy from the inside out. So we can turn the overwhelmed syndrome into the overflowing syndrome by doing that. How can we increase the energetic intensity from the inside out? One way is doing more of what we enjoy to do and more of what brings us an energy charge. So if we enjoy our mindfulness practice, if we enjoy gardening, if we enjoy going for a walk in nature, we enjoy playing with the cat, if we enjoy cooking, whatever it is that gives us like a recharge into our energy field, into our soul, what that does is it boosts our electro-immune system and makes us more able then to be there for both ourselves and other people. So another very useful thing in this is improving the quality of our sleep, because our major energy charge doesn't come from our food, actually, doesn't even come from our liquid, doesn't even come from air and light. It comes from our time of sleep, because when we sleep, we plug ourselves back in to the natural powers and forces of the planet primarily. But we plug back into the universe, the energies of the moon, the planet, the sun, the stars. We know, don't we, that we need to plug our cell phones in overnight. And those cell phones, they get charged by plugging in to the kind of power that comes through the wall, through the socket in the wall. So that's a lower form of energy. They don't make that energy. What they really do is they spin a big turbo and they suck in the energy from the planet and the universe, convert it to a lower form and send it through a wire, and then they charge you for it. But they don't make it. They just nick it. They steal it from the planet and the universe, and they turn it into a form that can charge a cell phone, that can power a laser, that can power an MRI machine. A lot of modern medicine is going in the direction of energy medicine, but they will believe in the kind of energy medicine that they can use by plugging machinery into the socket in the wall. What I'm proposing is another level of energy medicine where we plug directly into the energies of the universe and the cosmos directly. And then we bring those energies through us and we send them out through our energy field, through our hands, through our eyes, through our words, and we actually create healing in that fashion. So when you go to sleep at night, you can go to sleep at different levels of energy. So if we go to sleep worried and anxious, we're going to connect into a lower level energetic frequency than if we prepare for sleep, create a special ecology, and then go to sleep in that ecology. Because then we can try and have more like the sweet sleep of children, and we actually get a better recharge. So when we're out and about during the day, I'll just move back a little bit, we've got energy pouring out of our hands, right? It's pouring out the top of our head. It's coming out of our elbows. It's coming out down the soles of our feet. We're sending energy all around us out into the energy worlds of the planet. And gradually, our energy field runs down. We run out of energy. And when we completely are almost out of energy, our etheric, which is the easiest part of our field to see, shrinks. And we start to do an interesting thing. We start to go, we start to yawn. Now, if you yawn in a public place, watch and see who yawns next, because that's the person closest to your frequency. Because you just nicked a little bit of their energy, now they want it back. Because when we yawn, we pull energy in. I'm sure you've been in that situation where you're with a close friend, you've been together all day, one of you yawns, and then the other one does, and then you do, and then they do. And the one that wins is the one that yawns last. So we get tired, and our etheric shrinks, And we go from the vertical, we go from the discharging to the recharging. We lie down, we cut off the taking in of impressions to our eyes, and our energy field contracts. That's why if you may say to someone, sleep tight is because the energy field contracts. Now, overnight, the planet, it's like God bless her, the planet and the planet's ley lines and the planet's energies flood our system. We don't plug in like a cell phone. We don't need plugging into the wall. We don't come with a lead, you know. But when we go into that horizontal and we go to sleep, the planet recharges our system. And you can see it because the etheric in the morning is big and wide again. And we look at someone, we say, you're wide awake today. You're wide awake. The energy field just got bigger. So we have two states, sleep tight and wide awake, discharge and recharge. So one way to improve the quality of sleep is to make sure and clean up the area around the bed. And there's doing that physically. So one thing I recommend is don't take your computer to bed with you. Don't take your cell phone to bed with you. If you can, make it so you can switch your router off at night. Switch off your cell phone when you go to bed. Don't have a TV set in the room where you sleep. Reduce the amount of electromagnetic interference in the sleeping area as much as possible. If you have an apartment, try not to put your bed next to the exterior wall that's next to somebody else's apartment. Why is that? Because they might have their bed right next to the same wall, and then you're sleeping with them. You just didn't realize it. When two people sleep together, there's a lot of energy transference takes place. So we want to have our own dreams, and that means having our own energetic kind of area. What you can also do is then taking the bell, that idea that I gave, or a chime, you actually ring the bell over the area where you're sleeping, so you break up the energies that got discarded during the previous night. Because when we go to sleep at night, new energy comes in, old energy gets displaced, so you want to break up the old energy to make way for the new. But there's even the same, ring out the old, ring in the new, for the new year. In China, they bang pots and pans to break up the old year's energy to let the new energy through. We can do that every day. So we break up the funk, I call it, which is the stuff that we've got rid of overnight, and then we can go into a nice clean energy ecology to sleep. I also recommend watch out for what's under the bed. Like one client I had, he wanted a new relationship. He'd been on his own long enough. And I went to his apartment and I noticed that it seemed that the artwork was all showing singular things, like a singular individual looking out over a road. And there was a singular eagle. Everything was singular. And I asked him about his sleeping area. And I said, well, what's under the bed? And he said, well, he kept old letters there. I said, what kind of letters? Well, they were letters from previous girlfriends. So he was still sleeping with them. But they were it was the tangible written form of what was under the bed.
But it wasn't any fun.
Yeah, it was, exactly. So it's then clearing these things away to make space. And you can help your clients making space. And always, of course, and you know this in nutrition, never taking something away without superimposing with something new. You never take away somebody's fast food without giving them some really good replacements that fill that space. Well, think about energetics the same way, that there's 7 levels of energetic nutrition. So if you're going to take away someone's, let's say, soap operas, if you're going to take away someone's violent videos that they watch, give them something to replace it. Different kinds of music carry different energetic signal. Irish jigs carry a nice green energizing signal. So imagine you go to the energy doctor in the future, and the energy doctor says, "Oh, you need to listen to Irish jigs this week." Or you go the following week, and he says, "Oh, your emotions are a bit discharged, I want you to listen to violin music this week, because the violin is played from the throat, which is an outpost of emotion. And of course, when violin music is playing, you get this yellow emotional frequency. If you want to increase the martial red frequency, you get a drum like they use in the army, boom, 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 boom. That would be a red martial frequency. So different instruments, different musics create different frequencies that charge up different parts of the system. So we start to see everything as having an energetic cause. And when it comes to working with clients, then actually to be realizing that you're giving them the charge to enable them to keep going. You're helping them with their psychology. Like it or not, you're in the nutrition psychology business. You're not just in the recipe business. Otherwise, you could produce a cookbook and you're done. But if you're going to take on clients, you're into client psychology. And that's what tonight is really about. I think that's why Lorene invited me to speak tonight, is about this dynamic of the psychology of working with clients, and particularly the energy psychology, because with psychology comes energies. And you're dealing with other people's energies, you're dealing with their blockages, you're dealing with what inspires them, you're dealing with what depresses them, and you're helping them get through. And as you do so, it's very useful to have your own energetic toolkit whereby you can recharge your own systems and make sure that you keep yourself in good condition. And that's kind of what the module. I've done a 10-part course, which is about the human energy field, and it includes creating filters, making holy water, how to work with and see the energy field, how to feel and sense energetics, examples of the human aura through world history, the energy exchange between men and women, working with clients and how to clean and clear a space. It includes a 5-part energy clearing process in detail with videos showing you how to do it. So all of these things I've actually put into a 10-part kind of module, which is there for you if you want to pick up on that. No, Lorene will be sending that through later. Yeah.
I have to. First of all, you guys are hearing this feedback, are you?
We're hearing. Well, you're breaking up a little bit, and I know there's a couple of questions for David. Would you like me to read them to you?
Yeah, and then also, well, I'll text you and you can just read it, okay?
That's much better, yeah.
Sure.
Because I can't lean over and read. Yeah.
Okay, so read the questions.
Okay.
Oh, wait, it stopped. It stopped. Never mind, it stopped. Okay. So yeah, no. When I saw you guys are gonna die when you see the price. It's $97. I can't believe that. Like that is amazing. I'm gonna take it because that's my price point. Like if when I see something's $97, it's like okay, I'll do that, no problem. Anyway, okay. So the questions I'm gonna send all that out tomorrow in the replay. So there's he sent me a little blurb thing with the details, and I can give you also his website. I can do that right now if you just want to check it out. But the questions are, so we have from Lola asking about what can be done for the Wi-Fi in a car. She says she's about to purchase a new car. It's full of gadgets and it's causing her some concern. Anything that she can do?
Ooh, well, with that, when it comes to what I'm working with primarily is boosting your own energy system. But what you can do with something like Wi-Fi, I've linked up with a company called Zorb, that's Z-O-R-B. It's on my website at energyworlds.com. And they've got something called a Super Zorb, which is like a very large, like this big. It's a large disc. And what it does is it reduces the impact of the wireless frequency. So I have one on my phone. The reason that I actually adopted it, worked with it, is that I did what's called dowsing. Oh, there we go. It's the little Z. Lorene has one too. So I did dowsing. I do what's called vibrational dowsing, which is taking 2 rods. And I took my rods and I approached my phone. And as I approached the phone, the rods crossed just immediately over the phone. It's like, okay. And then I took this little Zorb, which a man was saying, this works. And I got on with him and said, well, let me try it. I'll put it on my phone. And if the dowsing works, so be it. So I put it on the phone and I approached with my dowsing rods and I went right the way across the phone and they didn't cross at all. So to me, that was a demonstration that it was effective and working. They have a larger version that's called a Super Zorb. I've got one on my router at home. So I put it on the router because that's the source of the wireless radiation. And I've done testing. So I've got an electromagnetic meter. When I approach the router, it kind of goes off the charts within about a foot. And then the further away you go, the more it drops. So I use that Zorb. So I would think inside your car, I would be using that as a technology to reduce the actual signals. Because with some of these things, we want to use actual hard technology to counteract the technology and the signals coming to us from that technology. So I do that. Well, let me say, as I'm saying that, I never put, I know some people here use shields, or as I call filters. I never put a filter when I'm driving a car, because something about using a shield or a filter is that if you create like a white or a pale blue filter around you, it makes you that little bit harder to see. It may sound odd, but if you put up a shield or a filter around you and you stand in a shop, you get surprised, like, how come everybody else is getting served before me? Because you become a little bit invisible because you change your frequency. So never ever use a shield or filter when you're on a bicycle, if you're walking in a place where you've got traffic, and if you are in a car. You never want to put a bubble around your car because you want it to be as visible as possible. You want it to be right there. But what you can also do is when you get out of the car, like there's a trade-off. Once you get into a car, you're putting yourself next to a great big whirring piece of machinery. So here's a tip. Never argue with your partner in a car. Reason being that if you get into a red-hot argument, the engine will contribute more red-hot energy and the argument gets hotter. Another tip, if you want to have a deliberate argument, best place to do it is in a jacuzzi. Like if you and your partner have got something serious to discuss, if you can go to a jacuzzi, the running water takes the static energy away. So showers are a great way of cleaning away static energy. So running water is very good for that. These are very practical tips. So when you get out of the car, try and ground yourself. If you can stand quiet for 30 seconds under a tree, if you can just pause and not just go rushing straight in with what's in your field from the car. So there'll always be a trade-off. Getting in a car with rubber wheels on an oil slick, which is what a road is, cut off from the planet, is going to affect your electro-immune system. It can't not. So the thing is being honest and admitting that, and then having a recharge process when you get out of the car. Yeah? So these things are trade-offs. We could go all the way to a completely unplugged lifestyle and go and live in a forest. Yeah, but most of us are not in for that. So we need to find trade-offs that work for us and compromises that work. Earthing is another thing you can use, an earthing technology which is grounding the static energy that tends to accumulate. I like to clean the energy in the place where I live on a regular basis, and I do it with a 5-step system, which is clapping, which produces a certain vibration, belling, incensing, and spritzing, which is using that lavender or cedar or some kind of higher frequency. And then you can also charge the energy field. You can use candles. Nice candles are helpful for that. But I would recommend, if you have any paraffin candles, chuck them out. Because you might like the glow, but they're actually producing poisonous vapor. So why would you have paraffin candles in a house? The best kind of candles are beeswax. Soy candles are kind of neutral, but beeswax candles actually are ionizing, and they actually clean the atmosphere. That's why they use them in churches. Like they've got reasons why they do stuff in these different places. So using beeswax candles is another great thing to do. You can have a little fountain going in the corner of your area where you work with clients. It's very nice to have living plants, because plants, when you take in static energy, the plants will actually eat it. It doesn't affect or harm the plants. They can process it. So creating a little bit of a natural ecology in the place where you work, if you have that kind of control. And one more thing that I recommend, whenever I'm going in to start work with a client, I will pause and I will actually invite anything from the higher energy worlds that wants to come and assist in the process to come and join me. That's like my own little invocation or prayer or whatever name you want to put to it. And I'm very specific. I invite anything. I'm not calling upon like a specific power or something. I'm saying anything from the higher energy world spectrum. I don't just say anything that wants to come, because you need to remember that in the energy worlds, there's high level frequency, there's also low level frequency. And nothing that's a low level frequency is going to kind of come along and say, I'm a low level frequency. It comes along kind of pretending it's angelic, so you want to be specific about calling in help from the higher end of the energy world spectrum. And I do that. I don't demand it. I invite it. If somebody wants to come and join, great. Because I do energy healing. Yeah, you're working with the hands and actually cleaning and clearing energies, as well as client work and counseling work, working with words and transmissions. And most of my practice now actually is working with other therapists. So psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, massage therapists, life coaches, because there's an increasing realization that energy transference is real, and people want help with how to handle the side effects of the energy world's process. So the human energy field module that I've created, it's really directed, it's there for the general public too, but it's primarily directed towards the dynamic of practitioners, social workers, therapists of all kinds, life coaches, because they're on the front line of really helping people lift the level of their vibration. And even I've got a couple of clients who are psychiatrists, and they're saying, "Hey, I'm not telling my co-workers about this, but I'd like a bit of help because I think I'm picking things up energetically. I'm having a few dreams that don't feel like my dreams." And I would just say, expect that. If you work with other people, you will get dreams that are not yours. And don't worry about it, because when you know that it's not yours, you don't get personally involved. If you don't identify with it, you just go, yeah, it's something processing through and away. So that's what a lot of what dreams are, Dreams are mostly the brain-mind system while we're sleeping, clearing away the yesterday's stuff that they don't want to hold on to. So they put them in pictures, they put them with images, and they clear them away. So if you work intensively with a client, and then you have a strange set of dreams or even a nightmare that doesn't feel like you, it probably isn't you. It's you clearing their energy out of your system. When you know that's happening, you don't mind. It's like, oh yeah, I understand what's going on, and that's part of being a well-connected practitioner.
Okay, so we've had people ask about. I've got a couple of questions here. First, drums, Himalayan salt, essential oils being diffused.
Yeah.
And I think there was one other. How are they helpful? And then we have somebody who was going back to what you said about being side by side with someone else, and her bedroom, the wall, she lives in a semi, and the wall is next to the other person's refrigerator.
Okay, that's a good question. I'll take the first two first. I have in my living space, myself, my wife Joanna, we have 4 salt lamps on the go. So with lights in, and they diffusing that lovely pink glow from the Himalayan salt. And salt carries an energy charge, and salt lamps are terrific. So I'm all in favour of those. So being able to go into a place, if you have a place near you that is, I think they call them halo rooms now, or salt rooms. There's a couple near me where I live in Florida, and it's great. They've got salt on the floor, they've got salt on the walls, they've got salt on the ceiling, and it's really good for the lungs. It's really good for breathing. And salt contains an energy charge. It's kind of part of the power structure of the planet. And so the difference between water and holy water is energy charge and salt. So salt is a crystal that holds energy charge. So when you release light through it, the light is actually carrying the energy charge from the salt. So yeah, absolutely. Essential oils, I use them a lot. I diffuse them. We have 3 diffusers in the house. And depending what effect I'm trying to create, I will use different oils. So frankincense, cedar, lavender, oregano, ginger, black pepper. Well, you go experiment with them. I look at essential oils as a concentrated essence of the planet and a particular frequency of the planet. Remember I said how a flower takes in energy, processes it through itself? Well, when you take, like, say, roses, you get, I don't know, it's like a ton of rose petals, and they squish them and get the concentrated essence of the rose. It's a very, very high frequency signal. It's a very high level vibration, and it's something that the planet produces through the rose petal. Frankincense, the resin from the frankincense tree, or lavender, that beautiful purple color. Lavender is very disinfectant. In the energy world, purple is a disinfecting color. So I'm all about, yes, herbalism, essential oils, anything that brings the planetary essence into a space where we live in concentrate, absolutely, because it brings more of the richness of that planetary connection into the place where we are, and to use it in your practice with other people, even if they don't know what's going on. Like I know a teacher who in her class, she just had a diffuser running in the background, and she regularly had different oils going, and she would ring her own little bell and do a little spritzing before the children came in. She never told them what she was doing because it would be a little bit strange in the school ecology to explain to the other teachers. So she didn't make a big thing out of it. She just did it. And she had a more peaceful and calmer class because of that. So you can use these technologies in the office without telling everybody what you're doing, because other people can go, well, what are why are you doing this? And it can get a bit odd. So you just do it, keep quiet about it, but lift up the level of the vibration of the place. So all those things are great. And with the refrigerator, interesting.
Wait, I screwed up the question.
Oh, sorry. All right.
I screwed up the question.
Okay.
So her house is a semi, and her bedroom wall where her bed is backs onto their bedroom wall, and only other place she could put it, it would put her against the wall with her refrigerator.
Gotcha. Well, if I could, I'd move the refrigerator, but that may not be possible. I would look to get an energy efficient refrigerator. The old ones put out a lot more electromagnetic vibration. But it's true, when you take the meter to test radiation levels, the fridge is one of the most potent. So you don't want to be having conversations sitting next to the fridge. That's a tricky one because it's a matter of balancing the two things out. I would, in that circumstance, be trying out both places and finding out where I felt most comfortable, actually.
What if you put a SuperZorb on the fridge?
The Zorb is more designed for the wireless frequency. So that's the thing with that. But the more modern fridges, they give out a lot less energy than the old ones. The old clunkers, they really put out a lot of electromagnetic interference. So That way you kind of work with what the case is. If you want to get it, if a person wanted to get more, well, you can do this too. You can actually, and I do this at night sometimes before sleep, you can, in the place where you're sleeping, you literally create a nice light blue energy field in the whole area where you sleep. And she could, or he could, paint the wall a pale blue energetically to create a filter. This will be putting it next to the wall where the other person is sleeping. Put a pale blue filter energetically and build it every night. Just make it a practice, and that'll filter out the other person's energies. I would actually go with that rather than being with the fridge, most likely.
And what about a grounding mat or a grounding blanket?
They are a good working technology. The best grounding, of course, is being able to take off your shoes and socks and stand in the grass. That's the best one. But any kind of grounding technology is better than none at all. So we're designed to be regularly earthed as human beings. And if we just go straight from concrete floor in the apartment to the rubber wheels of the car, straight into the concrete floor of the office and back again, we're never really quite earthing. So to pause and stand under a tree, and you can't do it necessarily in the cold of a Canadian winter, but can do that. And yeah, so grounding blankets is something else that can be used, which is, you know, putting a blanket and you actually have a bit of silver conductive wire in there, and then you can use that as well, grounding blankets at night. So interesting how many new technologies are actually being constructed to help with these things.
What about sleeping with your head to the north?
Depends on the effect you want to create. Head to the north makes for a more magnetic sleep. Head to the east is more if you want mental activity. If you want to be sort of grounded and to just get a really good deep night's sleep, head to the north. North-south axis is good. If you want to be more mentally alert and get more mental electric energy, I call it, rather than magnetic, a bit more mentally based, east-west is good. So don't get fixed in one particular way. Part of the great thing about being human is we're kaleidoscopic, we can move around, we can change things. Something I recommend to my clients regularly is break up the formation of the furniture. Don't always keep everything in the same place, because when we do that, we can go out for a walk and we can get recharged with new ideas and new thoughts. And then we come back inside and everything has been the same as this for 10 years. It brings us back into how we were. So I like to keep regularly changing these things around. I just spotted a little question about smart meters, and that's another place to put a Zorb. You know, the less amount of electrical interference we can have in our lives, the better. But it's a trade-off. I regularly get a message from Florida Hydro saying we can save you money by selectively switching off your appliances by using a smart meter. And I just don't go there because I don't want that further electrical interference.
Someone is saying, first of all, somebody wanted to know if the discount code for the Zorb thing on your website is working. I'm assuming you've advertised a discount code. Okay. Yes, it's working.
And okay. I should say it's Energy 25.
Energy 25 is the discount code.
Yes.
Okay. So then somebody said, Lola's saying the grounding is danger in crowded areas now because it can have a charge as per Magda Havis. I'm not familiar with her. Somebody else said something about, Lola said she had to stop grounding her earthing sheet to the outdoors for this reason. I don't know what that means.
I'm familiar with Magda.
Okay, so Marina's saying, I'm not sure what that is, but one has to be careful if one is doing grounding, that it is grounding and there isn't a charge surging back the other way. So if you're trying to ground yourself in Times Square, you're unlikely to get grounded. You're more likely to get fried. Well, I shouldn't say fried, but you're more likely to get the surge of everybody else's energy coming up through the ground. So grounding looks to have a polarity of 0, ground 0, but if it turns into ground +1, you get a surge coming back the other way. So that would be talking about crowds, that's probably what that's referring to.
Okay, and then somebody is asking about spinning. Does it make a difference which direction you spin, clockwise or counterclockwise, in order to spin something in or out and away from you?
Yes, it does. What's the way you used to say it? Righty-tighty, loosey-goosey, I think it is.
Yeah, loosey-lefty.
Loosey-lefty. When you're going clockwise, like if I'm healing, doing healing work, and I'm putting something in, I'll go clockwise. So I'll push something in, I'll stand up. I'll do this. I get my hand in the camera. I'll do this, and I'll be putting in clockwise. If I'm winding out, I'll be going anti-clockwise, pulling out. So clockwise pushes in, anti-clockwise pulls out. Yes. So it does make a difference.
So when you're spinning, which way do you?
If you're spinning, if you imagine yourself envision from above, if you're walking clockwise, then if you're spinning clockwise, you're drawing in. If you're going anti-clockwise, you're pushing out. So that would be the way of it.
Apparently, Magda Havas is an eminent Canadian researcher on EMF, and Lola is suggesting, because Amalia has an 11-month-old's bedroom wall with the electricity meter on, I guess, on the other side. She moved the crib to the wall next to the bathroom, and she has a salt lamp in her room. But Lola is suggesting you can get a cover for the meter from Amazon.
Right, good idea. Yeah, there are covers that you can actually put over meters and this kind of thing to try and still putting a cage over it to actually reduce the emanation that's coming from it. So it makes total sense. Yeah.
And then Wild.
Yes. Wild.
Yes. You have some awesome green wave electrical filter kits for homes and meters on your website.
Fantastic. Yes, we do. And those reduce the so-called dirty electricity that's coming out, that comes out from the electrical circuits. So you can go to the website. There's quite a few things we put there on the website like that. There's the Zorb, there's the Green Wave, other products, and of course the main thing that's there is my own research together with Joanna into the energy worlds and the human energy field module, which really has a lot of the information we've been talking about tonight in great depth, and with I can only do so much with the video demonstrations in this, but there we actually had a full-on camera, and we did video demonstrations of how to do many of the things we're talking about.
And Linda's saying you can also put an aluminum net over one's Wi-Fi router. It's apparently it's been tested.
Yes, that also works. Yes. So these are all the practical they're called hard technologies, and then there's how to boost your own electro-immune system. One thing I try and get across is that there's things we can do to manage the lower end of energy transmissions, and then the major work that we can do is to then, I call it, manage the lower and pioneer the higher. How can we elevate our level of thinking, our level of working with our emotions, so that we can connect into the higher energetics and what lives there, because that's what charges our electro-immune system. And what lives in those higher dynamics, we find names such as devas, nature spirits, elementals. These are names that we know from fairy stories, but they actually do exist, but they exist in these higher domains. We don't meet them in the lower energy vibrations. So here I am, age I am, size I am, saying yes, I do believe in fairies, but they're not they're not little figurines with skirts dancing around with little wands. If you ever catch a blue kind of ball at the corner of your eye and it's flashing past, or a silver sequin and it's like going whoosh when it flashes past you, that's a level 4 phenomena. It's part of the higher organic life of the planet, and it's what has been called fairy life, and it's to do with these very small sequins of power. And then you get the large powers like elemental powers, which can actually be 32 feet high. And when you ever see one of those, they're like a cone of energy, and it actually cleans as it travels down a valley. It actually cleans the energetics in the place. The planet's got amazing energy cleaning, clearing facilities. And even when at Christmas, I'm sure folks on the call have brought indoors a Christmas tree, not realizing that if you go into the forest at a certain time of year, particularly around December 21st, June 21st, I saw this on May Day, May the 1st. I went in for a walk in the forest. I looked up and literally saw a tree with silver flashes going through the tree, with colored balls hanging from it, and a great big white light on top, for real, and all kinds of colored balls at the base of the tree. And then I realized that's a Christmas tree. That's what we do. That's what we celebrate. I went and researched it, and I found out that the practice of a Christmas tree started when somebody went for a walk in a forest in Bavaria. They saw something, came back and started putting candles on the tree to celebrate what they saw. And that person turned out was Martin Luther, who started the Reformation. And he was somebody who used to see into the energy worlds, and he saw what became the Christmas tree. Only these days people cut trees down and bring them indoors rather than going out into the forest and seeing the actual tree there living. And it's a planetary phenomena because at certain times of the year there's an increase or surge of power through the planet. And so at the summer solstice and the winter solstice, there's a big surge of solar power that comes through the planet, comes up through the ground, and then that charges up the human system, charges up the trees, charges up everything. And that's why at that time of year, it's easier to see these kind of things. Why we call it Christmas spirit. Something happens. And a good practitioner who's well connected can actually bring a higher kind of energy into the room where they're working. So it makes the person believe that they can do it. Like someone who's feeling a bit down, like I'm not able to do this. It's too hard. I can't get through the changes of my programs. Change is the most difficult thing. I reckon it's the hardest thing for a human being to do is voluntary change. So when they come to the coach, they come to the nutritionist, they're looking for the energy charge to help them forward, to help them do it. And that charge flows from the practitioner to the coachee or the client. And then the practitioner needs to then know, how can I go and get more charge? How can I go and bring more of that energy to myself so I've got what I need to give to the next person and to make sure that I have enough for me? Because burnout is when we've given away so much that we don't have enough left for us. And that's when people say, well, I've got to unplug for months because I've just burnt myself out. Well, we're not meant to be giving ourselves away. We're meant to be giving away the overflow of our connection. That's the difference. We're a conduit. When we can bring energy in and pass it on, we can still have a life. But if we give away the very substance of ourselves to people, we end up electrically malnourished. We shrink electrically until we're not able to keep going. That's what I try and avoid. That's why I was working with those social workers in the Bronx, because they were saying we've got two caseloads. One is working with people. We can just about handle that. But then we have to write reports for the bureaucracy, and that we can't handle. So they were stuck between two different sets of responsibility and needed help in how to just keep themselves able to be charged and go on. And a big part of that is not getting personally involved with the client situation. It's being empathetic but neutral, because you can't help if you're in sympathy.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can help if you're in empathy, but if you're in sympathy, you're going to get in trouble, because by the time you've seen 20 clients and you've been sympathetic with them all, well, you need a week off. or you need to go to a resort to resort yourself, right?
Yes, exactly. We've got a couple of comments here, and I guess this will probably be it because I don't see any more questions. Melody was saying that she was at a person's cottage that has a dedicated fairy circle, and they took a photo of her, and when you look at the photo, there's an orb over her head, even though the person who took the photo couldn't see it at the time of the photo. And then Linda's saying that this is the whole talk that you have given is beautiful because this grounds all of her Waldorf philosophy training.
Right.
So yeah, the Waldorf from Rudolf Steiner and all that stuff is very much in keeping with a lot of this stuff. And then Melody also says, I'm very sensitive to others' energy, especially with clients. I always diffuse with high energy oils before the beginning of a session and leave it on after they leave. Already aware I'm an empath.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah,
that's the way to go. And with the fairy ring, what a great thing to make. It's an invitation to the fairies. It doesn't mean that, it gives them a chance, gives them an opportunity to come or not come, but by creating it, it says I'm open to their presence, open to them coming through and being here. The orb indicates that they choose to be there, because orbs tend to appear at special times. I remember being we regularly do a retreat in Mexico once a year for folks, and we went to Acoba and climbed the pyramid there. And when we took photos at the top of the pyramid, every one of those photos was covered in orbs. The photos at the bottom of the pyramid, not so. So there was something at the top that was focused and was causing that to actually appear. And it's great. I mean, part of what I'm registering is many people on the call, they're already finding ways, whether it's diffusing oils, working with salt lamps, doing different things. Because they feel instinctively drawn to it. And that's something which is growing, is that instinctive sense that it's possible to lift up the level of vibration and to make a difference in that way. And there's what I call human evolutive, is like a gathering to lift that level. And to me, it's the real 1%, which I'm looking for it to hopefully grow to the 10%, to be the 50%. That's kind of upwardly mobile, not materially, but energetically upwardly mobile. And that's who this module is written for. That's why we produced it. And that's also why I think I find myself working increasingly with practitioners and coaches, because they're the folks who really need the help above all, and the assistance. And if I can offer one more tool, like my kind of look at my job these days is coming alongside, and from my own experience, offering tools that can help someone in what they're doing. And if I can offer one more tool that goes into the toolkit that makes someone that bit more effective, that's been a good day's work. So if there's one thing in that human energy field course, that 10-part course, that helps do that, if it helps someone see energetically so they can see the energy field around the client, that's a great help in registering what to do. So it's packed with different kinds of technology, and that's why we made it. And the reason the price is so silly, as you said, Lorraine, is the reason we pitched it at $97 is because we really wanted to reach as many people as possible. And the 10 parts, they stay, they're available for as long as there's an internet, is how we like to say it. So they're like a magazine that you can go back and refer to. And special for the call tonight, we're actually including a free book, either Partners in Passion or the other book I wrote called The Tales of Dr. Wu, with the 10-part course. So it's like a very special thing that's going to happen if it's ordered within the week. We'll keep a note. We know who's ordering within the week, and we'll be in touch through email, and we'll be sending you out a complimentary book as well.
Okay, so I will write all that up and put that in the email for tomorrow so they have all the details. Somebody's talking about organite pyramids.
Right. Oh, about that, I can see someone say I can see the light through my fingers in the morning before getting out of bed. That's exactly right. You learn how to hold your hands, and you move the hands backwards and forwards. You see the lines of energy coming through the fingers, and I show how to do that very specifically in that module.
Perfect.
And Marina has a question.
Yes, Marina.
Do you want to come on the screen yet?
No, that's okay. I just have a question.
Come on,
no, they can hear me.
Okay.
No, they want to see you. They want
okay, they've seen me all night. Okay. All right.
With regard to, you know, feeling when you're with a client and giving them that energy,
yes,
so that they can feel motivated. Yes. I've experienced that a lot, but the problem is once they leave,
yes,
they lose that.
Yes,
and then they're afraid to come back because they weren't able to maintain what we talked about.
Absolutely.
So how can we continue to give them that energy even when they're not with us?
You let them know that they're not perfect, and you don't expect them to be perfect. Yeah, and that they're most likely going to get, if they can do it by 10%, they're doing fantastic. So then they come back, and if they take one thing and they make that one thing work for them, or even a couple of times, then it is that's their success. If they don't even do that, you can send them energy, but if there isn't the motivation in them to want to make the change, that energy comes around and comes back to you. There has to be a place for it to land.
It seems to be okay with like just changing people's lifestyle, nutrition, sort of things like that. But when it comes, because I dealt with a lot of cancer clients,
right? So
because there's a huge fear component.
Yes.
When they're here, they're like ready to take charge of their own health and to try something else and so on and so forth. And then once they leave and you know, they see their doctor and the doctor tells them no, they can't try any of that stuff. The fear component kicks in and they're afraid, and usually it doesn't end well.
Yes. Well, in that example, what you have, it's a very powerful example. It goes beyond nutrition at that point, that's for sure. But it's a very powerful example. What you have is when the doctor, who's based in level 6 technologies primarily, is coming at them with a powerful enforcement, possibly backed up by family and friends, and you're the lone voice saying try nutrition. They have to have the courage to go with not being part of the crowd. They have to go with the courage of not being the conformist person. And that takes, if you take the word, I love playing with words. If you take the word, words a crowd, you anagram the word, it says coward. And most people will go along with the crowd. A crowd is coward. They'll go along with the crowd. So you can only work with the people who are there for you to work with. One thing I've learned in coaching, if someone comes to me because they've got a gift card, it's most likely not going to work because they haven't come of their own volition, or they've come because their husband says they have to, or the wife has said they have to. I get a bit almost empathetic with them and say, there, come back when you want to come back, because unless a person wants to make change from inside themselves, it doesn't manifest. So it needs to be, you can find that motivating spark, and you can help them and kindle that spark. But if they've got a whole bunch of influences coming at them to discourage them, then it takes a lot of courage to stay with it.
I actually see the shift when they're here, and they're like, it's incredible. Like
absolutely,
they're like, yeah, I should have done that, you know, whatever. And then once they leave,
because they're then subject to those other influences. So it really is a major contract, because that's such a major shift. You know, at that point you're looking at such a deep rooted dynamic. It's immediate life and death stuff.
Yes.
Whereas if you're trying to get someone off fast food and into better nutrition, there's more leeway.
Oh yeah, they're more apt to do. They're not afraid.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. So fear is a big thing there. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so we're getting lots of thank yous, and They really appreciate everything that you said. Melody's saying, so grateful for how much wisdom you shared, David. So this is the sign that that they are done. When the thank you start coming in.
You can keep talking to yourself, mate. Yes.
There you go. See, there's the signal. So I want to thank you, David. This was wonderful. I had discussed with David having him on when the new book is out. And originally that was what we were going to do, but then I found out it wasn't going to be out till October. So I'm going to ask him to come back when the new book is out, because that'll really blow your mind when he talks about the different personality types. But in the meantime, we have all this other information. So I'll be sending you all out the chart that he gave you for the 7 energies, and then all the links and all the information that we talked about tonight. Everybody's saying thank you. Really enjoyed it, David. David, you're wonderful and so wise. All right, so I'm going to say good night.
Well, let me say also thank you, Lorraine, for being there, for this actually coming together and being able to coalesce into existence.
I'm thrilled with this. So anyway, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Thanks, Lorraine. Good night, everyone. Nighty night.
Good night.